Welcome, I'm Tom Laux, Communications Director, City of Marshfield. Thanks for joining me. It's time for Council Preview. Steve Barg.
Yeah, we're talking about the meeting on October 27th, but as you look outside, it looks like it's December 27th, doesn't it?
It definitely does. Winter came early, and it seems to last here longer than we're used to.
Yes.
But that's all right. That's why we live in almost the northern part, I call it, of Wisconsin.
Yeah.
But yep, winter's here. But it's council preview time, and it's our time to highlight some of the items that are going to be on the Tuesday's meeting. Note the time, 7 o'clock, October 27th, for the regular Common Council meeting. We are in the process of budget meetings as well, and there's going to be one taking place at 5:30 that same evening, same council. And we will be talking about a budget, and I'm going to turn it right over to Steve, and we're going to highlight that piece before we get into the general Common Council meeting.
Well, thanks, Tom. On the first meeting on Monday, October 19th, we met for 2 hours from 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock. Ed Wagner, the chair, used that as a cutoff point. Sometimes if you're there too long, people kind of get worn out, so especially with all the numbers. The first hour from 6 to 7 really was a lot of Ron Allman, our finance director, and me talking about the playing field, as I call it. Where are we at right now? And every year I kind of give a dashboard of things like where are we at with our TIF districts, our debt, our reserve fund, our tax rate, all those kind of things. But this year we're facing kind of a structural budget deficit, as I think you and I maybe have talked about before. So we had a lot more to present in terms of where we're at and what the options might be for the council. And a lot of Q&A came from that, Tom. So that part of the meeting actually took a whole hour, and we can touch on that if we want to. But then the regular part of the meeting, as I would call it, going through the department budgets. And you have all the department heads either in person or on Zoom to be able to address the concerns. We got through general government. That's the council, the mayor, those kind of things, along with the finance and technology and clerk's office. We got through the public works departments, streets, engineering, and general administration. And we got through the public safety, which is police, fire, ambulance, and municipal court. So we got through probably a little bit over half of the department and division reviews. We got to come back, and we'll start our next meeting on this coming Tuesday at 5:30 with park and recreation, economic development, and other categories. It's 90 minutes we're planning on meeting, up to 90 minutes on Tuesday. So we're hoping to get those other categories done in the first 30 to maybe 40 minutes, and then have the back half of the meeting to really dig into the meat of where we're at right now. You know, what does council want to do? Do they want to look at additional budget cuts? Do they want to look at other revenue sources? Where do they want to end up? I know that there's some heartburn right now among some, certainly about a tax increase. And I hope to have at least a good 45 or 50 minutes to really delve into that with the individual budgets behind us.
Okay, well, we'll learn more about it at that time. Just to recap again that what you said for our viewing audience, the meeting will take place at 5:30, and they will pick up from what they were on and talk about development services, parks and rec, and other budgets that haven't gone through. Does that mean that they could go back and talk about those budgets that they already went through? Is that correct?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, very rarely do we make decisions while we're in the Q&A part with department heads. During that meeting, we had Pat Zepps, the acting fire chief, acting police chief, Pete Fleddy, the acting fire chief, Dan Kinneck, our public works director, Eng, our technology director, all address questions, but no monies were added or dropped. And that's where we'll start now. But by the end of this meeting, there may be people making motions and saying, look, I'd like to cut out $15,000 from here to help get to a lower expenditure budget. And we'll start getting into the decision making in the back half of this meeting, and then certainly as we go into the final meeting on November 2nd.
Okay. Well, as always, there's public comment at the beginning of that meeting. Public wants to weigh in. They can always watch this video from, not just this video, but video from the meeting that was held Monday night to get a bit of information. All that information is out on the city website under finance, and that's where you would find the financial information that you mentioned. So if they want to look through it to get an idea what the council looks through, that is an open record right now.
Absolutely. And again, you're covering both of those meetings for people on the various platforms we use at 5:30 and 7. And yeah, I mean, if you can come to the meeting, great. Otherwise, send us an email, make a phone call. hey, we're right in the middle of the process. We'd love to hear your concerns.
Alrighty, well, we'll leave it as that and get right into our 7 o'clock regular common council meeting. It's the second one of the month. We do two a month, one every other week, and let's chat about what's on there. I'm going to go all the way down to our consent agenda. There's a big thing about asphalt paving list that's really important. It's about our roads for the next 3 years, right?
Yeah, right, Tom. One of the things Mayor McManus really wanted to do when he came on board as mayor in 2018 was get the word out to people. What streets are we expecting to do in the next few years? I think at one point he wanted to look out farther than 3 years in terms of what we put on the website. Our engineering department said, anything more than 3 years is a little bit hard to predict because the wear and tear on the streets varies. Some streets you might think could make it till 2030, and you look after winter and you say, oh my gosh, it's not going to make it till 2030. So we do revise the schedule, but what you've got in front of you and what the public can access as well is the next 3 years of asphalt mill and place projects. In other words, where we grind up the existing surface, lay it back down, and then put another coating of asphalt over it. And when we do that, Tom, again, just for people who wonder what that does, that usually buys us another 15 years or so, maybe more, of good use of the street before we have to rebuild it. Rebuilding streets is where the real cost is. So it's a good way to try and get more life out of our existing roads. And you've got the laundry list in front of you. It's 3 pages, one for each year. You look at some of these years and you got maybe 20, street sections that are being done in a given year. So it varies from year to year, some more, some less. But these are the streets that we intend to do. So if you're interested, if you've talked to somebody on the council or the mayor and said, when are they going to redo my street? It's getting kind of beat up. You might want to check out this list.
Okay, and it lists quite a bit of information in this list, which will be available in the packet on Friday, correct?
Correct, yeah, and it's not only what roads, but it's a lot of information, like you said, how many feet, what the expected cost might be and those kind of things. It's good information to see if, like I said, they're coming down your street and how it may play out. If that is the case, they will definitely have public information meetings to talk about the project, get your concerns about how it's going to affect your driveway or a street tree or whatever. But this is a starting point.
Did you personally go through that? Was that an asphalt overlayment project where you live?
I did, Tom. Yeah, my wife and I live on North Hills Avenue up by the Fleet Farm area, and we just went through this. I can say nothing but good things about the crew. They were very attentive. We had some follow-up concerns in the terrace areas that they were very helpful with. And I went through the whole process, went to the public information meeting. Tom Turchi and his staff, excellent. And, so definitely want to make sure you plug into that when your roadway is being redone.
All right, and one last question for those that maybe are just getting tuned in or want to know more about how this is paid. Where do the monies come from to pay this?
Well, when we do the overlay projects, the city picks up the lion's share of the cost. However, the abutting property owners do pay for some of the work. And it kind of depends, too, how much you pay based upon what's being done. I mean, does your driveway have to be readjusted in some way? Is there sidewalk involved? There usually isn't in these type of projects. But, do they have to put a new culvert in? What work do they have to do in the ditches if you're along a street that has ditches? So you will probably pick up a share of the cost. In fact, you will. But most of the cost overall is paid for by the city on these projects. You will get an assessment, though, and that's, like I said, for some of the cost involved.
Okay. All right. Well, notice a lot of these construction projects by living here in Marshfield now, a little over a year, moving here from either Plover or the Wisconsin Rapids area, we have a lot of ditches. It's a little bit different than curb and gutter, I've noticed. Is there a reason why that is, or is it just the terrain that we live in, maybe?
Well, a long time ago, maybe you've heard this since you've been here, Tom, a woman by the name of Marilyn Hardiker. She was our only woman mayor in the city of Marshfield. She had a vision to get all the streets paved. And she was mayor for 8 years and really, I think, accomplished the lion's share of that. Well, it costs a lot of money to put roads in. So, initially, I think some of the roads, we couldn't afford to do curb and gutter and storm sewer and all that. But there's been a lot of talk in past years at the Board of Public Works about when work needs to be done on some of these streets, can we retrofit? Can we come along and put in storm sewer and curb and gutter instead of ditches? And at one point, it seemed like the Board of Public Works really wanted to go that direction. But then you look at the cost, and any street that you do like that means that there's less work you're going to be able to do on just resurfacing declining roads. So I think they felt like the better bang for the buck, for the most part, is to keep up on the good pavement, rather than spend the extra money and do fewer projects to replace those ditches.
Yeah, and curb and gutter is a whole nother world, because that's a lot of plumbing underneath you don't see.
Yeah,
So-
it is. And ideally, I think most people would say that every street in the city, not only curb and gutter and storm sewer, but sidewalk. But all those amenities cost money, and you try and make the dollar go as far as you possibly can.
All right, well, thank you for that information, Steve. Let's go to finance, budget, and personnel. Last night, pretty long meeting, almost 2 hours. Actually, it was 2 hours.
Yeah,
I
hour
believe.
and 40 or
Somewhere in
45,
there.
yeah.
I tuned in a couple times.
Might have been longer if we didn't have to get them out of the room for the plan commission.
That's right. Approve a resolution for emergency medical services rates.
Yeah, I think the main point with this item is that the city has a EMS department. It's the ambulance service. We run one. A lot of cities don't run one, but we do. And it's called an enterprise fund, which means it's supposed to stand alone as a business. No tax money is brought into the picture, Tom. It's all covered by rates and whatnot. So annually, we look and see what rates are and if they need to be bumped up. We use a company for billing and collections called LifeQuest. They're out of Watoma, and they helped us with these recommendations. If you look at the resolution, you see that most of the rates have gone up by a small amount. Basic life support for a resident when the ambulance comes out has gone from $850 to $900 effective the first of the year. For non-residents, it goes from $950 to $1,000. Most of these increases are within the range of 5 to 10%. But the idea is to keep up with the cost so that we don't have to come back to the taxpayers and say, you know what, we need tax money to run this ambulance service. That's a place that we haven't been and don't want to be. If we're going to run an ambulance service, we want to make sure that we're covering our costs without tax dollars.
Yeah, this is really good information. It tells you a lot of what the charge would be, if I'm looking at this one right here, of attachment of what would just to go out on a call. Is that correct?
Yeah, correct. And the types of services you provide when you're on the call.
Okay.
And, like I said, it's very, a lot of costly treatments and things that are done on the ambulance rides and whatnot. But basically, this just covers what types of services are provided, what those base costs are. And again, we're not trying to make a big profit here. That's not the goal. We're trying to meet our costs, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's an important service because any one of us could need it in a minute.
Yep.
And if it's not there, it could be, I'm going to be honest, life or death.
Yep.
So it's one of these you can't shortchange. Do you want to talk about TIF-related services with Ehlers?
Yeah, I do. The city is running out of industrial property to develop. Down there we have the Yellowstone Industrial Park. Adjacent to it, there's the Norwood Industrial Park. That's a privately owned and managed industrial park. But that area, TIF District 7, has been running out of room. And you say, well, okay, do we have any spaces yet for people to build? Yeah, but you want to have some options in terms of sizes, and you want bigger spaces. You want lots that are large enough if somebody calls and says, hey, I got a great client who wants to come to your town. Do you have 30 acres available? Well, I really don't. So we want to take some property off of TID 7, which we can do legally, and make room for starting a new TIF district in that area. We're going to call it TIF District 12. Our viewers may remember that we had proposed a TIF District 12 for the Hampton Inn and Suites project. It didn't pass, so this one will assume the same number 12. But the goal is to provide more acreage for further industrial development, not only to be able to acquire the land, Tom, but to be able to have money available for incentives to businesses, because it's very competitive right now. I think you and I have talked about this, that if someone wants to build, they look at Wausau, Marshfield, Stevens Point, other cities, and they look at somebody who can help them to get up and running. So they might say, well, look, if you can help cover some costs, we'd like to build a new community, bring some jobs and tax base. So you want to have incentive opportunities besides just the land. So what we want to do is work with Ehlers. They're our financial consultant, but we also use them for some economic development work, and see if we can't start this new district and make it possible for industrial growth.
Do you call this district to be shovel-ready or not?
Well, that's interesting because that's a state terminology that they want to have. Initially we haven't really talked about what that means. There's certain criteria that you have to meet to be considered shovel-ready by Madison, and we'll definitely look at that, because then you get on a list that helps get referrals, I think, from other entities.
Right,
So.
especially when you're, well, I hate to say competing, but that is kind of what it is. It is somewhat cities competing against each other to get these industries, manufacturing facilities in town, because ultimately it will create jobs, and then jobs help spend money here. It's a trickle-down effect, and we need to have that availability if Josh or our chamber gets that call and says, hey, I'm looking at coming here, I need 100 acres. Well, you don't want to
Yeah.
say, I don't have it.
Yeah.
That'd be the last thing you want to say.
No, if they call us and they call Wausau, and Wausau says, we got the site ready, it's all laid out, we've got everything in place for you, and we say, well, if you give us a year or two, I think we can make this work. We're looking at buying some land, we're looking at rezoning it, we're looking at doing some site plan work to make it, site work to make it developable. They're going to say, well, really nice talking to you.
Yep.
I mean, companies, when they decide that they want to relocate or add operations, they usually need a pretty short time frame. They've got a plan in mind to expand, and they want to get going. So
definitely.
shovel ready is very important.
All right, well, we'll find out more about what the council says there, if they even take it out of consent, because these are all consent items.
There was a fair amount.
Already went through.
Yeah, there was a fair amount of discussion about it, though, Tom. I will say this, because part of the deal is we have to pay for some more industrial land. And I know Chairman Wagner and I think others raised the question, with our finances, are we in a good position now to execute and buy more land? We do have a credit, though, that's available to us that will help us buy the land adjacent to us, and that'll reduce the price for us, the cost of dollars going out the door. But it's a good question, and the council may say, this may not be the time for us to look at buying more property because of finances. But, I mean, if you don't grow the community, what are you doing?
True.
You're either growing or you're going backwards, usually.
Right, unless there's land to sell, and I don't know. I know we have sold, and it's gone through council approval, but this large amount, and then maybe where we want to make sure that this fits the best location is why maybe you're looking at more of an industrial manufacturing area. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, industry is really oftentimes provides the best tax base, and sometimes there aren't as many jobs in certain companies depending on what they do compared to commercial. But it's the kind of, you want those good paying jobs that can provide family wages.
Mm-hmm. All right, another piece on here to do with back to our street department, permanent implementation, of call-in pay.
Yeah, well, last year they started a pilot program, and here's the deal, Tom, here's the way it works. City employees can only have 40 hours of comp time. And so, that's fine, you don't want to have big comp time banks, but they said over there at Streets last year when Dean Schiller was still the street superintendent, you know what, you don't want to pay a lot of overtime if you can help it, because during the winter, think about all the snow plowing. And you run up all these costs, and then the city looks at the budget and says, oh my gosh, wouldn't it be possible for the street crew to have more accumulation of comp time? Some of the folks would like it. Rather than take the money, they'd rather have the time off when they like it. Maybe it's during the summer, maybe it's whenever. So they did a pilot program, and my understanding is it was fairly successful. So this will allow them to, on a permanent basis, accrue up to 80 hours rather than 40 hours. And I know that seems weird to treat them differently than other employees, but it really does reduce the cost, the hard cost that we have to pay in wages, because comp time, while it's time that they're away from work, it doesn't cost us extra money like time and a half does on these big storms. So the committee was favorable, and we'll see if the council is as well. Is
call-in pay different though when if they do get called in and on an emergency, they already worked that day and they got to come back?
Well, they get and if you look at the policy, they get a flat fee. They're coming to work when they wouldn't normally be coming to work, but they get, I believe it's a $50 flat call-in pay for just responding, no matter how long it is. But ultimately, there's a savings to the city in terms of the hourly, pay with the overtime, the time and a half factor. And so, I mean, it's generally seen to be a positive. There were some questions raised about it, but the committee was pretty favorable to continue it now as a permanent program.
Oh yeah, you're definitely going to be a savings for the city, and then and a good option for someone to maybe want to take off when it's not as busy. Which works both ways.
Yep.
Let's talk about approval of filling vacant positions. That came up too.
We've talked about the financial condition the city is in, and it's not dire, but we've got some challenges you and I have covered. And one of the things that was brought up by Tom Witzel, the council president, at the last Finance, Budget, and Personnel Committee meeting is, should we look at having the committee and the council be required to approve all refilling? So we have a person leave today. If it was the way it has been this year, in the past couple of years, we'd say, well, there's an accountant leaving, we need an accountant, and let's just do it. Post it in the paper and the website, and here we go. But the committee's been saying, look, these are hard times. We want to make sure that we need to refill all the positions. Well, why wouldn't we? Well, sometimes you can find a way to do it better. You can find a way to combine two positions and get some synergy that way. Maybe there's other avenues we can deal with. Maybe you might want to contract with somebody to provide a service that's been provided by employees. I'm making this up. And please, employees, if you're watching this, don't get nervous. But the committee would really like to have a chance to do that. And sometimes it'll be as simple as, yep, we obviously need this position. Get out there and get the hiring process going. But they want to be able to make those calls because in some cases they feel they might save money for the city by looking at other ideas. So from now on, at least for the foreseeable future, we're going to have all positions needing to be refilled running through the Finance, Budget, and Personnel Committee.
Okay. But isn't positions evaluated every year anyway by the department head? They give an eval to each employee, so you kind of know, and then you get those, I would assume, and HR knows that if it's valuable or not too.
Right, but I mean, you're talking about how people are performing their jobs.
Yeah, okay.
We had an individual leave who was an administrative associate in the Public Works Department, and when he left, we had our city clerk and our Public Works director and others get together and say, you know what, is there any opportunities here to rework this? And what we did was, we revamped the position so that the person working in this job was also working with and for Deb Hall, the city clerk, and actually divide the budget between the two departments. And then we had the person who got the job was from our finance department, a part-time person. So she took the job. Well, we haven't refilled her part-time position. The city finance director is saying, look, let's see how this goes. Maybe we don't need to replace that position. Let's see if we can work it another way. What happens in these conversations is you do find out ways to rework the pie sometimes that are beneficial. Then you also have the Chris Hawley thing from last night where he says, well, most of the time if one of my guys leaves, I'm going to come to you and we need, it's not going to be any different from month to month. I need another equipment operator, one left. Do you really want me to do that? And the committee said, yeah, for right now we do. We want to be looking at the what you're facing, what our finances are, before we give the thumbs up.
All right, we'll find out if they vote to make that happen, and if it does, then everything will come in a hiring process, as I understand, back to Finance, Budget, and Personnel for existing positions.
Correct.
Not new positions. If there's a new position, regardless, that would have to go.
Correct. This is for existing.
Yeah. Okay, let's get into some of these other action items. We're just getting out of consent here, and probably went quite a while into the program for everyone watching. But benefits, that's a big piece. What's about that going to be presented by Jen and our John
Price.
Yep.
It's an interesting spelling.
Yes,
when you look at it,
looking at that.
I know, but his name is John Price, and he is our benefits consultant or insurance consultant with M3. Usually when he comes here every year, Tom, it's to talk about health insurance. He lays it out and says, look, I've worked with your staff, I've worked with the other companies out there. I think you need to change your deductibles, you need to increase the co-pays or whatever. Here's 3 choices of plans. We'd go for plan B if you think it's good. That's all been done. If you remember, we got a great proposal for health insurance for 2021 from Security Health Plan. Nominal increase, 3.5%, which is very good in the health insurance world. And so what he's going to do this time is really just summarize right now. Council, here's where you're at with your health insurance, your dental, your other kinds of benefits that we have, vision and whatnot, long-term disability or short-term, those kind of issues. And he'll go through all that and answer their questions, kind of a snapshot of where we're at today in our benefits. Health is the biggest one, but there's others out there too. But the decision has already been made to go with SHP for another year. And there will be one thing that comes up that you'll hear about, and that is that there's another plan called Simply One, and that's for the employees who say, look, we spend all our dollars at the clinic facilities. If you do that, if you commit to that, you can actually get a lower premium. And so the city pays less and the employee pays less, but you got to commit to that. And so he'll describe how Simply One works, and then we'll see in the enrollment that happens in November how many employees wanted to go that direction.
Okay, so we're in the budget process, and I'm just, some people may ask this question. You have to kind of budget for this maybe happening, not happening. If people take Simply One, it's going to cost the city less.
Yeah.
But how do you budget for that?
Well, they always say accountants are conservative, and we try to be conservative. So we just budgeted for a 3.5% increase, assuming that no employees take Simply One. But as Jen Rakeu, our HR director, has said more than once, if we get even 25 or 30% of the employees to take Simply One, because it's going to be good for their families, we can bring that overall increase down to close to zero. And if all the employees took it, we'd actually see about an 8% decrease. So we're going to see what happens the first year. Based upon the first year's experience, that will help us budget for 2022.
All right. Well, that kind of dovetails into the next piece because this was created a while back because I believe you were on, I'll call it like Plan B. It was a different kind of plan, a very normal plan, but a lot of places went HSA.
Yeah, until a few years ago, we only had a traditional plan that had the standard co-pays and deductibles. And we really wanted to look at the health savings account, and we got that on board. At first, we wanted to provide some incentives to employees to go to the HSA, and we started this program where we give 600 single 1,200 family that the city actually puts in your account every year to help offset some of the costs, because health insurance costs are rising, and the deductibles are going up a lot. People see this in their own lives, and this is a way to tell employees we care about you. Some of you probably didn't like going to the HSA because you have families and a lot of health needs, but this is a way of saying we want to help supplement your account with some dollars. And so they've historically continued this program. We believe that they will in the future. It's a good thing for the employees. We want to be an employer of choice. Wages are kind of tight right now because of some of the finances, and we're hopeful to see that the council continue its commitment to that annual contribution.
All right, and we're going to talk about the communications plan. Last time we brought it up, but you had asked me and the mayor to move it to this meeting because of a long council meeting last time. So we're going to be talking about the communications plan again.
Yeah, thanks for agreeing to let that happen. When the council meeting starts getting to be many hours, and the two meetings together were many hours, they kind of get a little worn out. And I want you to have the maximum time to explain this great work you've done to put this together, Tom. One of our big projects for the year. But yeah, how do we communicate? What are the tools? What are the plans? What's the flow of communication? Want to have consistent messaging, get the word out on the various platforms. You've done a good job, but this will be just discussion. You're going to present it. You're going to have time to bake it this time, so I'm glad about that. A lot of Q&A probably, and then we'll put it on the November 10th meeting for final approval. And that will be I know you've said this to me many times, and you're right, that'll be a big thing to have under your belt in order to really move forward with this department.
It does. It gives us direction. It also gives us direction on pieces that we purchase, because you don't want to purchase things and then they're not going to be used or implemented. That would be a waste of money. You don't want to buy this giant grader and nobody's ever to operate it. It'd be silly. Same thing as here. I'm not saying we're getting more people, but
Right.
if no one wants to use the tool or can't use the tool, then the tool's basically become useless. So I will be presenting that, and I've had time to bake it some more, to tell you the truth.
Good, excellent.
And tell
Good
our
news.
viewers that both myself, the communication specialist, David, that's behind scenes here, been working on that to really think that through again and again. I'll bet we've had 20, 30 different versions.
Oh, wow.
But throughout,
Wow.
not since the last time we met here, Steve, but
Yep.
through this process, we haven't just thrown it out there. We have been out, as your terminology, bake.
Yep.
Probably for a good year and how it works. And I think it takes this long for us because I remember our department is brand new, never existed here. When's the last time that a brand new department came in?
Yeah.
You just don't see it.
Not since I've been here.
Yeah,
So,
assessor
yeah.
might be one but that's
Yeah,
contracted
it's kind
out.
of contracted. Yeah.
If you guys change that, it may somewhat go like, although you have someone in place right now.
Right.
But that's the reason, and we needed time to really see where we are. You couldn't figure that out in 2 months or
No.
5 months. So,
No.
yeah, I'm looking forward to the presentation and looking for questions. I hope I get questions. I want the questions if it's from the public, because this is all about the public too, because that's what we're here for. We're here to give information out of what the city does. So
Yeah, I'm grateful to the mayor and council too that they allowed time for you to work on this with the committee and David. I know when we first brought you guys on back in the early part of last year, there was this desire to get this going, but you had so many things to do. I've said this on these programs before, Tom. You guys had so many things to do to put the pieces together. I mean, a new city department and all the things you're taking on, But they gave some grace and said, look, we want to see it happen, but you got a lot to work on. This is a good day for everybody.
All right, well, we'll see what happens. Again, that's just for discussion, and we'll come back in 2 weeks for either approval or some kind of action that they're recommending for us to do. Anything else, Steve?
No, I think it's a full plate. When you get in these budget meetings where you have 2 meetings, and like the last meeting when we had a meeting with utilities, it's a full evening, but it'll be a good one.
All right. Well, you might be bringing your bed there. You never know.
It could happen. Sometimes I've talked about taking a cot out of my house.
Yeah, that's part of the job. I know your fall time, throughout your career, this is pretty common to be there a lot, but that's given for what we do. So
yeah, and when I talk to my peers in other cities, it's not like I'm alone. This is the time of year that is really the biggest part of the activity for all cities.
Exactly. All right, we'll leave it as that. Thank you so much for watching us on our council preview. You can tune back in on it in the month of November. Again, we'll just highlight the next coming up council meeting. We won't be doing the budget meetings like even though it's a council meeting, just so you're aware of it. And we'll bring that up at our next council preview meeting that we talk about on those possibly 2 budget meetings before we come back.
Correct.
Yeah. So
very true.
All righty. Thanks again for watching. I'm Tom Lowe's Communications Director, City of Marshfield.